Yo, what's up guys? Schizomanic here. So I've been meaning to do a video on Dr. Stone for a while. The problem is that Dr. Stone is one of those series that I legit never knew how to place in kind of its box or what draws people to Dr. Stone. And that's kind of the intrigue to Dr. Stone, but it's also kind of like you're in Shonen Jump, and I know we're kind of going through this time period in which Shonen Jump is becoming less of its traditional battle manga and more of a variety of different types of genres that still appeal to the same demographic. But it always brought up the question, okay, well, when I look at Dr. Stone initially, when it first started, comes off as more of an action series. You're trapped in the Stone Age and you're trying to kind of survive in this new environment, and one of your main characters is the guy who has a love and appeal of science, and he knows how to create a lot of shit because he knows that the basic elements for creating a lot of the modern conveniences we had in current time. Because that's the premise of Dr. Stone. It takes place in modern time, and then everyone gets turned to stone, then they start breaking out of stone, and you're surviving in this new world. From there, it kind of turns into this weird survival series in a way, because as they unlock people, you start freeing people from the stone prison, from the petrification. I mean, some people don't have the same ideas as, our main characters, Taiju and Senku, for example. And so it becomes a situation of, well, how do we deal with this dude who definitely does not think the way we think and has a completely different morality when it comes to certain things, like, how many people should be freed from petrification and which ones deserve to die. And that in itself is a cool setup for a series. And then literally after the first, I want to say 7 to 10 chapters, it kind of switches into this weird educational manga, the way I almost look at it. Because, and I was like, well, and I had to think, you have to think about it this way. How would you recommend someone Dr. Stone? Like, if you were like, I heard about this series called Dr. Stone, can you tell me something about it that'll get me interested in reading it? And I had to sit down and think and go, well, there's not a lot of fights, so it doesn't really fit the standard shonen tropes. Granted, there are fights in Dr. Stone, but they're not like fights. The series has primarily been a lot of educational shit, because science is a heavy theme. Science versus nature is a heavy theme going around in Dr. Stone. But the science part is just a bunch of fucking chapters in which they're just building shit, and there's no real, there's not a lot of character development. So it's not like a traditional slice of life where it's more character focused. Not saying there aren't characters who don't have development, because you got characters like Chrome and Gin and what's his name? Magna, I forget how you pronounce his name, who do go through character development and change. So it's not like there isn't any characters like that at all, but then it's but it's not like as much as, say, other series when it comes to that kind of stuff. So what's the appeal of Dr. Stone? And I think it took me a while, but I think I got it. I think it's an educational gag manga almost. It's like a gag. I feel like the gag manga aspect of it is its first and foremost. It just has a better backdrop and premise than a lot of other gag manga does. And the reason why I say that is because if you've seen and read the chapters of Dr. Stone, no matter if it's an action sequence, whether it's something as basic as them building shit or combining chemicals and whatnot, those faces, they make some ridiculous ass comedic ass funny faces. And you're like, I think this is supposed to be a gag manga, or at least more of one than you would expect from something like this. And that's kind of the appeal of Dr. Stone, I think, is that Dr. Stone's kind of a cool mishmash of a bunch of different characteristics, but the comedy always seems to be not the forefront, but definitely always an element of every chapter. Dr. Stone is very quick with has very quick goals. That's the way I'll describe it. For example, let's say the overarching goal is to build something as ridiculous as a tank. Every chapter is a step into completing that goal, and every chapter usually ends with one section of that puzzle completed. Whether it's making the wheels or the outside body or the material we're going to use to make the tank, it's always this quick, rapid succession. An easier example is them making spears and swords and fucking glass. and it's always done like within the chapter, so it's never like Dr. Stone is very quick with that shit, so it never feels like it drags, along with its comedic moments that are usually sprinkled in throughout these little experiments, because you got characters who don't get it, so you got your little explanation, you got some application, and you got some comedic stuff going on in between. Now, not to say the action in Dr. Stone is bad, it just doesn't really go too far because of how Dr. Stone presents itself. Like, a lot of the fights so far in Dr. Stone, from the time I had, only like the early chapters were actually like relatively serious. Not saying the other ones aren't serious in terms of nature, but in terms of shit that goes on in the fight, sometimes it's just like, oh, here's a ridiculous fucking gag of someone getting kicked in the balls, and look at the ridiculous face they're making. It kind of takes away from, like, heavy tension. So, like, I can't really recommend someone who likes fighting in their shonen series to be like, go read Dr. Stone, because they'll get through, like, maybe the first section of it, like the first maybe 5 to 10 episodes of it, I guess, if it ever got an anime adaptation, or I guess the 5 or 10 chapters, and then, like, you're going right into educational stuff for, like, a good, what is that, like 50 chapters or so, with some minor fighting going on in between. So it's like, well, that's not what you do if you're going for the slice of life stuff, because it's so educational and comedy focused. A lot of the characters aren't any different. It's like, oh, here's a character you recognize, but a lot of them don't really change personality or growth, because the series isn't really focused on that. I feel like this is a series that is more focused on its themes than its characters in a lot of ways. You're more focused on the idea of fighting nature with science versus just surviving in the cold, watching these characters survive in this new world. It's more of a, we gotta have one take on the other and that's it. But I guess that might be part of Dr. Stone's appeal, that it is something different and it does have a different kind of feel to it. Like, there's not really anything else I can think of that has the same kind of feel to it. Where, like, for example, I'm making glasses and shit, so I gotta start off by figuring out how do I make glass. Then how do I make glass that fits the size of a lens? How do I know where to position the lens so it works for people with certain different types of eyesight? Like, that kind of minor shit is cool because it's done in spurts. I think the biggest problem Dr. Stone suffers from is that can get kind of jarring after a while when you spend a lot of time just hanging on this, okay, we're gonna make this tank or some glasses or some spears and swords and shit, and you do a lot of that shit back to back to back to back. We made some swords, now we're making glasses, now we're making shields, now we're making medicine, now we're making I don't fucking know, you're just making different shit, and like it starts to fall into a rut. But I think that's part of the reason why we still have the action set pieces in the backdrop as kind of a overarching theme going on. That way things don't get too monotonous. Although I still argue it still happens from time to time because of the nature of how things are done. You go these long stretches of chapters just doing shit, and I'm like, well, it's fine, but you know, if I cared about the characters, like for example, if you were a fan of Taiju in the beginning of the manga, boy, pretty disappointed overall. And like I said, I wanted to see some character growth or some character moments from certain characters that were currently being shown. Yeah, it doesn't happen that much. Doesn't happen that much. And it's a little disappointing because it kind of takes away from the entire allure of the series, you know, for me. Where it's like, if the only thing you got going for you is your funny faces and your cool educational action kind of chapters, it's cool, but like it'll never really elevate above that. And I think that's the biggest problem Dr. Stone has. It hasn't really gone out of its way to elevate above what it is right now. It feels like it's just literally hanging in its weight class and has no intentions of elevating itself. Now there's a potential for that considering where we are in the manga and where things are currently progressing. But as of right now, it's just kind of like, well, we're just hanging out in this little line. And I don't know what's supposed to happen, but hey, maybe Dr. Stone will do more bait and switches and change the style up again. I'd be curious, because they spend so much time on this whole, like, science, this science focus. I'd be curious if they're going to go into, like, heavy nature focus, where it explains the reasoning, the importance of having both science and nature. But I don't know. Dr. Stone's just a weird fucking series. I mean, that's it. Hey, did you want to watch a video about Dr. Stone? It's a weird fucking series. has ideas, has things it wants to do, and has some weird but unique ways of handling its problems, but it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just fucking weird. I don't know. Tell me if you guys like Dr. Stone. If you like Dr. Stone, why do you like Dr. Stone? And please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. This has been your boy. You're not having any fun if you're not going a little bit crazy. Catch you guys later. Peace out.